Let's start this video number 4 dedicated to the ICOH Congress that is taking place in Dublin, as you probably remember. Three main events have raised my attention today, and first of these events, the Global Policy Forum. The Global Policy Forum is a session in which you have a panel of different experts coming from different international institutions, such as the ICOH, ILO, WHO, ISSA, and other people coming from all of the different continents in the world. So the topic of this Global Policy Forum was occupational cancers, and this was really interesting. Yuka started with a preliminary talk in which she precised that work-related asbestos death will be reaching at least 235,000 deaths. So this is quite a huge concern, and some data concerning this makes things a little more practical and easier to understand. Hans-Horst Konkolewski from the ISSA, so this is the International Social Security Association, is also advocating for an asbestos ban, but nevertheless there is still a dark figure, that is the expression he used, concerning all of the other carcinogenic substances. As you know, the Social Security is the organization that is providing compensation for occupational diseases, and he explained that most of the occupational cancers and that were compensated were considered as asbestos related. So what about all of the other occupational or work-related cancers, non-related to asbestos? Are they compensated? Well, it's a little more difficult to get a compensation. As far as I know, in France, at least 75% of the occupational cancers are asbestos related, and well, it's more difficult to get the compensation for all of the others. So we have to work a lot on that issue. Paul Demers from the Occupational Cancer Research Center in Canada has provided us good news concerning asbestos ban. So Canada is going through asbestos ban this year, so this is great, and this was quite difficult to reach, I guess, for Canada, because Canada is a huge producer of asbestos. So it has probably raised some political concerns between business and health, and this is the good news that health has won this fight. David Rees from the National Institute of Occupational Health in South Africa has raised one interesting question. In short, is that question of occupational cancer a question of rich people? Because in Africa, most of the countries are in development, developing countries. So yes, developing countries are a concern, not at the same way as developed countries, but they are concerned. Because why? Especially because all of the firms, the enterprises that are providing some risk are transferred to developing countries, such as the African ones, and these are the African workers who are facing now the occupational hazards, including exposure to carcinogenics, and without any personal protective equipment in some situations. So yes, this question is of interest for African people. Kurt Stry from the IARC has explained the interest of getting a register of a registry of cancers, providing us the example of the identification of a new group 1 carcinogen substance, that is the fluoroadenite. This is an amphibole, so looking like asbestos, or a part of asbestos, a fiber, and this fiber is able to cause mesotheliomas, and this fiber has been identified because of the registry, and it could be found in volcanoes in Italy. So this is the Italian registry that was helpful for that issue. So a very, very interesting global policy forum, and much more dynamic than the previous one in the Seoul Congress, to the best of my memory. This was really, really stimulating and dynamic. It was really interesting. Second element, as you probably remember, I am a judge, really good for self-esteem, and providing us a wonderful little extra badge, a purple one with, it's gold letter, so maybe I'm able to sell that and gain some money with this. Well, more seriously, 2 posters to evaluate with a colleague from the ICOH. It was really interesting, and we had to evaluate 2 posters. One of an Irish woman, resident in occupational medicine in Ireland, of course, and she presented the study concerning the assessment of hazards at the workplace, and with a will to standardize this assessment of hazards. So it was a bit unclear to me whether this assessment, this hazard assessment, is also including the question of the medical follow-up. So, well, it was a bit unclear to me and to my colleague from ICOH. But it raised the question of the will to standardize the medical follow-up or the exposure assessment. So it is not the same topic, but talking about the medical examination, while maybe in some other countries there is a will to standardize medical examination in order to have to guarantee to all workers they are being under the same kind of tests and so on. In France, it's not the same. We are much more going through a tailored examination. This is related to demographics of occupational practitioner, of course, because the number of occupational physicians in France is decreasing, so we cannot afford anymore to provide a systematic examination of all the patients in France, but it's much more logical from a medical point of view to provide a tailored assessment with specific exams. Do not perform x-rays or CT scan to everybody. It's nonsense, and it's providing some risks due to radiation, of course. So this is a question that is raised by this poster to me. The other one was presented by a Turkish PhD student, a woman who has done a good job with the translation of a questionnaire, the COPSOC, that is a good questionnaire and much more used through years. And it's an interesting question to assess stress at the workplace. I think maybe more from an epidemiologic use rather than a daily practice. But it is good because it's not focusing on just a single model. You have the job content questionnaire by Karasek, the ERI model by Sigrist. They are focusing on one way to consider stress. This is a choice to focus on that, and it makes things clear when we talk about the Sigrist. We are really clear with how stress is assessed. This is much more a composite questionnaire using different dimensions of stress, so this is interesting. And it was a psychometric study, so it required for the judges to have some knowledge on that, and hopefully I had one or two information concerning psychometrics, but it's quite difficult finally to judge posters, because sometimes the students are really experts on their field, and we do not know in advance what kind of poster we are going to assess. So maybe it's not on our personal scope, because we cannot be expert on everything. So, or we are more likely to be expert on nothing in that kind of situation. The final event I'd like to talk about is the session I organized. That raised a good success, because the room was overcrowded. Well, of course, it's easy to say the room is overcrowded when there is only 25 seats on the room. Well, all of the sessions are not able to pretend they have the same success. So I'm quite happy with the fact that a lot of people attended this session, and it gives me the will to propose the same kind of session in the forthcoming ICOH Congress, maybe in order to raise a higher number of submissions concerning that topic of addiction and work. So several presentations, one of myself, I won't be talking about that. One of my student, my MD student, who is now a doctor in medicine, in the French way, Docteur Desutter, he has been presenting his MD project concerning gambling at the workplace. So, in short, he did a cross-sectional study in an occupational health service in Bretagne, in Brittany, in France, and he identified some problematic workers and tried to assess the link between gambling and the workplace. So we are on the process on submissions for this work. So you will be able in the forthcoming month to get some more information, or maybe I will be doing another video on that topic. And the first presentation of that session, but I'm finishing my video on her, Marie-Claire Lambrechts from Louvain in Belgium, has performed a presentation that was really interesting concerning concerning alcohol consumption in the Belgian workforce. So that was interesting because it provided data on the topic. I think we are lacking of data concerning alcohol consumption, because in some studies we have some data that are not related to citations. So we do not really know where all of these data are coming from. So we have some source of information, and this is really interesting. Well, I'm done with this video, so I'd like to say to you goodbye, and see you on tomorrow for a new video concerning the ICOH Congress.